Hello, I am Vitold, and in this video we've got a Harley-Davidson Pan America in the Special variant and a BMW R 1250 GS in this comparison. After riding Pan America, I feel that it will be the most often considered against the big GS, and since I do not own Pan America nor the GS, I may openly share with you guys what I think of these two. I've ridden all big adventure motorcycles currently on the market, and this gives me a certain perspective on the whole segment with no bias. In the end of the video, I'll tell you which one out of these two bikes I would choose myself and why. So let's get into it and start with the first category, which is engine and performance. Both motorcycles have two-cylinder engines, but Harley has a V-twin, while the GS uses a boxer. Harley has 1252 cubic centimeters of displacement, while BMW is almost exactly the same at 1254 cubic centimeters. Where they differ more is power, with Harley's 150 horsepower and BMW's 136 horsepower. And also in terms of torque, which in Harley tops at 128 newton meters, and in BMW that's at maximum of 143 newton meters of torque. On paper they are pretty close, while in real life Harley feels way quicker and more explosive. It feels to me like more fun to ride and encouraging when it comes to engine and performance. BMW is no slow bike, but it's more like driving a pickup truck with a diesel engine versus driving a sporty SUV like, let's say, a Porsche Cayenne with a petrol engine. BMW has amazing flexibility and may be a bit better here, where Harley wouldn't be far behind, as it doesn't lack any flexibility overall, I think. But you know, it just feels smoother and more effortless when accelerating compared to BMW. It has to do with vibration and sound a lot. Both bikes have good heat management, but it's Harley that has a more enjoyable engine and better performance here, and it takes a win in this category. The second is handling, and here Harley feels more like a Harley, I guess. Handlebar is moving pretty hard, which messes up the level of control that you've got over the bike, and this obviously doesn't help. Steering is not very precise because of that, and pointing Pan America where you want it is a true challenge, especially at lower speeds. It gets better when the speeds are higher, and then it feels pretty okay. BMW, on the other hand, feels as if you didn't even have to ask it, and it follows your command immediately with full precision. It is partially thanks to how this bike is balanced, with its cylinders sticking to the sides. At high speeds and at low speed maneuvers, GS is significantly better at anything that you throw at it. I'm gonna stand behind this statement. Its eagerness to change direction and also to ride perfectly straight, right from 1 kilometer per hour, is amazing, I think, and when it comes to handling, it beats Pan America. It's a win for BMW. Now, suspension. Here it's interesting, as Pan America Special is equipped with height adaptive suspension, which really works and makes managing the bike easier when it stands still. You can use different settings of it or even completely disable it, but on a daily basis it's useful and pretty fun. BMW also has special feature, which is a telelever front suspension that ensures that the bike stays flat at all times, and this also does work. That's one of the reasons why GS handles so great. Now, both bikes also have electronically adjustable suspensions with different riding modes available depending on whether you feel like having them stiffer or softer. BMW uses a less advanced system, and Harley offers a much wider range of that adjustment from stiff to very soft and comfortable, which I appreciate. Harley's front suspension is like jelly, as it dives like crazy. BMW R 1250 GS beats it here with ease. But then Harley turns out to be more comfortable, to me at least, than the GS in the softer settings, which does matter as the ride is smoother and more enjoyable to me. Ground clearance of Pan America Special is said to be 17.5 centimeters, and that of GS is 18.5. GS's suspension travel is 19 centimeters in the front and 20 centimeters in the rear, while for Harley it's 19 centimeters in the front and also the same in the rear, 19. So overall they're pretty close in numbers right here. But overall damping comfort tells me that Pan America is a more comfortable bike to ride for hours on a highway, especially bumpy one. And so considering the super innovative height adaptive suspension and wide range of useful stiffness adjustments, this makes me select Pan America as a winner. in this category. What about the seat and position comfort then? Pan America's handlebars seems to be pretty high, and so you feel those other Harley motorcycles' influence here. That impacts control over the bike in a not the best way. Seat height is claimed to be 85 centimeters with the possibility of raising it to 87.5 centimeters. And I am suspecting that this may not include a situation when the bike is lowered, or I'm rather pretty sure that it doesn't. If I'm right here, which is impossible to confirm with Harley-Davidson, I've tried a few different approaches. It's impossible, they don't know themselves. Anyway, then it's possible that it actually drops to as low as 83 centimeters in the lowest seat setting. This applies to Pan America Special with this suspension. For the higher, it would then be at 85.5 centimeters when in the lowered state of suspension with the seat higher. The non-special version, so the standard one we may call it, seems to be taller, but there is a complete mess in Harley's data, and for the same bike and specification there are different claims by Harley in different places, so we won't exactly know. BMW R 1250 GS has its seat at 85 centimeters and can be raised to 87 centimeters. Handlebar is in a more comfortable position and more traditional position for this segment of motorcycles. It's also pretty wide, which helps in keeping the bike under control. The position seems nicer on a GS. For me, at 1 meter 83 centimeters tall or 6 feet tall, knee angle is fine in both bikes, and also both provide an upright position. When it comes to seat comfort, Harley is awesome here. For me, its seat is noticeably softer and more comfortable, which does matter a lot. GS isn't bad, but I wouldn't say that it's especially fantastic in terms of seat comfort. To me, it's just too hard. On the Harley, you may notice that the seat ends pretty rapidly in its front part instead of overlapping the fuel tank bar, sort of protecting it. So you kind of come in contact with the fuel tank, which, well, you know guys, it can be dangerous for you. In the end, we've got a more comfortable seat on the Harley and a nicer position of control on a GS. And since this depends a lot on what you prefer, I'll let you guys decide. So please let us know in the comments which one you consider a winner here. I would be leaning towards Harley, and I am picky here, as you can judge by my office chair, which is electrically adjustable in 18 ways. It is covered in Nappa leather, and it's likely the most comfortable thing that you can get for your home or your office. It's called 7G11. So if you're sitting a lot, I recommend that you do check them out at powerseats.eu. It's super cool stuff. Moving on to wind protection, both of these bikes have height adjustable windshields. GS does a bit of a better job in shaping the wind stream in a way that dealing with it is a quieter experience than on a Harley. I feel that there's also a bit less turbulences on a BMW, but Harley is generally okay here as well. In both, I would recommend to replace their windshields with something aftermarket that is taller and that will protect you better, as these stock windshields, well, they are never too good for some reason. Adjustment methods are different. While both let you operate them with one hand, GS uses a knob that you will never know which way to turn until you try. Then it takes some time to go from one extreme position to the other extreme position, but the range seems quite okay. Harley uses a lever with another safety lever so that it's not too easy for us to use. This way you need to combine two sort of movements or two actions, and sometimes it's not that much fun working with it. It might be quicker, but may also be more frustrating, so I'm giving a win to R 1250 GS in this category. On top of that, Pan America Special, coming with handguards, hits the windshield with them when you turn the handlebar fully to either side, something clearly didn't work out. Now the brakes. In Pan America, the rear brake does close to nothing, while the front brake requires a lot of force to brake strong enough. Not the most reassuring setup, while in a GS it is a pure pleasure to brake, and I'm not kidding here. Brakes are strong, they're easy to dose, while front lever suspension that prevents GS from diving makes braking a unique experience that makes you squeeze the brakes harder and harder just for fun. The bike slows down as if nothing was happening, with almost no front end dive. And this is amazing, and BMW created a masterpiece here that wins in terms of brakes. As for the drivetrain, Harley went with a cheap chain drive solution while BMW invested in a great shaft drive, which is more comfortable for us all to live with, as you may forget it's even there, versus having to have a chain spray and having to use it every few hundred kilometers, checking its tension, having to replace the system, having to clean the bike from all the mess created by the spray and then thrown around by the chain. BMW for the win, big time here. The next one, which is fuel tanks, well, it sort of depends. As in a GS, you may have 20 liters in the standard version or 30 liters in the Adventure, which is also a taller bike with taller suspension. So not exactly the same setup as this, but still the same sort of bike. Pan America comes with one fuel tank capacity of 21.2 liters. Well, there are more useful choices with BMW, and so this is our winner. In terms of weight, BMW is lighter at 249 kilograms. Harley Pan America in the special version weighs around 10 kilograms more, all with fluids still. It also feels generally heavier than the GS in real life, so forgetting about the numbers. Then when setting off, all that weight of a GS just disappears and you won't feel it until you stop again, while with the Harley, you will feel it around most of the time at lower speeds. And this means another win for BMW. But what about the tech part? My Pan America Special had keyless ignition, but for some reason it had no keyless fuel cap. And if I recall correctly, it has something to do with location. In the United States, the bike comes also with keyless fuel cap. Well, BMW has it solved everywhere though. There's also a quick shifter option that has been added later to the Harley. Now you have to buy it as a separate thing and have it installed. BMW has had it for years, but let's say it's equal now in 2023 and on. I just don't know how good it is on a Harley, I cannot judge that, but they've stepped up here. The electronically adjustable suspension with adaptive ride height is a huge piece of tech, and let's also remember about that. BMW's suspension is much less sophisticated, it doesn't have that adaptive height, but its display along with all the menus is looking much more modern than the one in a Harley. It's there just overwhelmed with stuff, and I'm showing you more about that in my full honest review of this bike, which is linked in the description. I also have such a video about the GS, so check them both out later. BMW you can have with 2 heated seats, while I believe that there is no such option for Pan America. I might be wrong here, it's not that easy to deal with Harley. Most of the rest is similar, so yes, GS can have a bit more tech stuff and has a better and more modern display, while Harley has that fancy suspension. While I'm very impressed with the idea and the way that this adaptive ride height works, I personally wouldn't miss it that much and would rather have a keyless fuel cap and a nicer display to look at, along with at least rider's heated seat for some colder days. So my pick here is a winner in the tech category is BMW. In the next one, so sound, well, BMW loses to me as Harley's V2 engine makes a nicer rumble to me. This is very personal, and Harley isn't perfect here as they have installed they've installed a rev limiter at around 4,000 RPM, so that it's the only bike in a segment, I believe, which you cannot normally rev. And it's a Harley-Davidson. But it sounds overall nicer than BMW's farting Boxer, and I'm calling it a win for Harley. Small, but the competition wasn't very strong here. Otherwise, that rev limiter would be a deal breaker. Off-roading, excuse me, what? Not with such weight, size, and prices of these bikes. But if I was forced to take one, it would be the GS because of its great balance and handling at low speeds. A different handlebar and a more aggressive but still more comfortable position on the GS would help there as well. Still, don't try this at home. Now, design-wise, I am with the GS, even despite it not being a super pretty thing to look at, but it's got a certain appeal to it at the same time. Harley looks fine from the side, looking at its profile, but that front face is a total deal breaker for me. Well, I couldn't live with that, I think. And that's a pity. So let's hope Harley makes it less controversial with time, with some upgrade, with some update. But for now, BMW wins here, in my opinion. If that's not convincing, then looking at the details, BMW is just more solid. It feels like it's of better quality than Harley in most places, if not all, which is like it is. And you'll see that in my full review of the Harley and the flaws that they have managed to implement there, if we can say it this way. One category before the last one is price and value for money. Comparing Pan America Special, that is already pretty much fully equipped, only makes sense when we take a look at a fully equipped BMW R1250 GS. And because of Harley not listing local prices in a local currency, but only in euros, which then makes currency exchange come into play, I may say that these bikes are priced similarly, with Harley being maybe around 4% more expensive than a well-equipped GS. But if we took a look at the base Pan America with regular suspension and fewer options and features, it would be 20% more expensive than a base GS, which is a bit surprising. That's a big difference. We know that Harley bikes are priced at a premium, so overall, both price-wise and in terms of value for money, I believe that the winner is BMW. The last category to compare these two in is the so-called by me X factor. For Pan America Special, I would say that it could be about the great engine, about cool suspension that can impress others, but above all, about being able to say that I've got a Harley bike, or I've got a Harley-Davidson. I think that it can be cool. For BMW, we've got amazing handling that makes you ride this bike like crazy. It's overall a super fun thing to be moving on. GS is also a legendary name. And so overall, also knowing other riders' opinions, GS should be likely a more fun to ride motorcycle than Pan America. And well, there are reasons that so many riders choose to buy them all around the world. And I think that riding Pan America Special has its nice angles, but my personal winner in terms of X factor is BMW R1250 GS. To sum up, Pan America Special wins in engine and performance, suspension and sound. GS takes wins in handling, wind protection, brakes, drivetrain, fuel tank, weight, tech, design, price and value for money, and also in the X factor. But which one I would choose and why? I like Harley's comfort and engine more than what BMW offers in a GS. Then the handling and braking part are what makes the GS so fun to ride. It's also a quick bike with much torque available, and I feel R1250 GS is a more complete product that is overall significantly and visibly more sophisticated and more encouraging to get back on it and just ride it again and again. If I didn't care about the design, which is a deal breaker for me in the case of Pan America, and I would only be doing very long and rather straight tours, I might be tempted to go for Harley, for the Pan America. But since I don't, and I ride a lot in the city, and I do care about what I spend my money on and how much I spend it, BMW R1250 GS would be my choice. To see more about each of these bikes individually, head to my full reviews linked in the description. Subscribe to see more of that stuff. See you!